Eden here, and we are on a Skype call right now with Neal Larson and Julie Mason. You've probably heard them in the morning on 590 KID, at least for how many years now, Neal?
Oh, I've been at KID for almost 9 years now.
And I've been there for 2.5.
Yep.
2.5 with Julie, but this morning you made a big announcement on Facebook. Although I can no longer see the post, people have sent it to us. You announced that you resigned. So what happened?
You know, what happened was sort of a culmination of things, but we had a difference of philosophy, I guess, with leadership in the company about how we were covering aspects of the stay-at-home order and the lockdown. And so we took issue with that. We did have a phone call with our leadership, and things kind of escalated, and we decided that it was probably best to part ways, and that's what we did.
Now,
I think that you and I felt like we have very strong conservative values. We hold true to those, and we couldn't sacrifice those values. So
now,
we're going to stick with them.
Had you guys been planning this for a few weeks or days, or was this something that you just decided this morning?
No, you never. A job like mine, which I have treasured and I love the audience, I love everything about what I'm able to do. I would never leave a job like that for just one reason. And so, like I said, it's kind of a culmination of things, but most people probably have been at that point where they reach a job and, at a point where they say, it's time, it's just not working, and it's time to part ways. So I would probably characterize it like that.
The radio industry, well, actually all of media right now is really hurting because of the coronavirus as far as advertising revenue coming in to newspapers and websites and TV and radio. Did that play into your decision at all as far as, the show hurting financially or anything?
No, I mean, obviously money's been a concern. It's been a topic for quite some time, but we didn't leave because we were fearful of not getting paid. In fact, quite the opposite. We felt like KID, in terms of the amount of advertising that we were getting, was actually weathering this storm pretty well. And so that didn't play into our decision at all. We didn't see the writing on the wall or anything like that. So no, that really wasn't an issue.
Would you mind kind of explaining what are your viewpoints, I guess, on the stay-at-home order and the coronavirus? What did you want to discuss on the show that you felt maybe you couldn't openly talk about with your audience?
Well, I would say, I guess it all kind of happened last Friday. At least that's what we were told about some of the things that we've been discussing. And of course, the governor's order's been fairly controversial. In some ways, the order seems to contradict itself by telling people to stay in only for essential reasons, but then they open up non-essential businesses for curbside service. And I mean, there's several points about the order that are seem to contradict themselves. So we talked about that. We talked about people who are staging a protest. We know that there are a number of businesses that are opening their doors even in the midst of the order, before the order is up. So we were talking about that in that context. And when you have a situation where we have the governor's executive authority that is in direct contradiction with our constitutional rights, which in some cases that's okay, and I would defend that. But we're at a point where people are getting restless and they want to get back to work. They want to get back to their jobs. They want to provide for their family. They want their businesses to operate again. And I think that we acknowledge that, and we talked about understanding that. And people wanting to get back to normalcy. People can absolutely disagree with us, and I understand that. But those were the topics that we were talking about that kind of led to this.
We had expressed some concerns about the long-term damage to our freedoms by submitting as much as we have. Didn't express that people should fight against that, but we did express, specifically me, that you needed to follow your heart and figure out what was exactly right for you and your family, because I think COVID-19 is really situational. We'd like to put a banner over the top of it and say one solution fixes everything for everyone. And I'm not sure that's exactly how that's going to happen. And I believe we're seeing that with the way that the country's going to reopen. One solution fixes every area, every job, every individual, or the country as a whole. And so we were expressing those ideas also.
What's the plan now? I mean, you guys you're the only local radio talk show, right?
Yeah. We actually do have our own podcast that we've been doing for a little over a year now. And so we'll address this issue for sure on that podcast, because obviously we're no longer with Rich Broadcasting. That's not a potential outlet for us anymore. And so we'll explain it on our podcast.
We will. It's called The Neal and Julie Show, and it's on all platforms. We also have a Facebook page, The Neal and Julie Show, or Neal and Julie. And we invite people to come. This is part of who Neal and I are, and we're not, just because we don't have a platform at KID anymore, doesn't mean there's not a platform for Neal and Julie. We've got lots of doors we can walk through, lots of people who have been in conversation with us, and we invite people to come to Neal and Julie's page on Facebook. We're going to be Facebook Living there. That's been one of our favorite things of our listeners over the last little while is several days a week we would podcast or we would Facebook Live after the show, and our numbers have been wonderful with that, and we're not going to stop that.
What's been the response since, well, from what I understand, a Facebook post went up where you guys announced your resignation. And then I can't find it, but a few of your listeners sent us screenshots of it. So it looks like the station removed it. But what's been the response? Because I can tell you in the past hour or so, we've had a lot of people shocked, surprised, some wondering if you're going to another city to continue the show, which often happens in radio. You move up market. Yeah. But what's been the response that you guys have seen since you made this announcement?
Oh, my phone's been buzzing off the hook.
Pretty overwhelming. Lots of well wishes, lots of why and frustration, and it's good because as we close the show today, we mentioned how much we love our listeners. That's for real. We love the people who interact with us every single day, and we don't want that to go away.
When we didn't walk into work this morning thinking, hey, this is going to be our last show today. We didn't anticipate this, but when we saw the email and took issue with it, and having a conversation later, we realized it was time, and so that's why we took it. So we apologize. We didn't mean for this ever to be abrupt like this. It's horrible timing. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We have 4 hours a day to visit with thousands of people to help keep them informed and updated. We're less than a month away now from a big primary election as well, and we were looking forward to covering that and being a part of that. So I guess I would use this opportunity to apologize about the timing of this, because we have always taken pleasure in the opportunity to inform and give candidates an opportunity to be interviewed and to get their message out. And so the timing's kind of terrible that way, but it certainly was not our intent.
And Neal, just so I have it right, you went into work this morning. You didn't resign on the air, or did you?
No.
Oh, you finished your show and then you got an email about what was discussed?
We had the email before the show. It was sent around midnight or something last night. So it was one of the first things that we saw this morning before we went on the air. And it kind of altered the course of our show, because here's all these mandates now that we had from our owner, and kind of demands that he was making. And so we're like, how do we do this? So we actually ran some content that we ran last week, an interview with the governor, another interview with the U.S. Senator that we did. We had a scheduled interview with the Lieutenant Governor, which we carried out, but it was just one of those situations where suddenly your parameters went from this wide down to this wide. And so we were very, very careful on the air. We knew that it was going to be a possibility that it could be our last day. So we took the last couple of minutes of the show. We weren't specific at all. We just said, if the time ever comes that we don't have this channel to communicate with our listeners, we love you, we'll miss you, and we care about you. I had no idea how the conversation was going to go after the show, but it obviously didn't go well.
Wow. And so your resignation was more on principle than financial reasons or
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we're not, we don't have a concrete plan to compete against it. I don't know what I'm going to do, for a full-time job for the next little while. That's okay. We're good for a while, and we're going to be fine. We'll find a way to land on our feet. But and like I say, I want to reiterate, because it's never just one thing or one instance that would lead me to leave a job like this. It was more just it's been a couple of years in the making of things kind of diverging, and me kind of seeing that I guess from a philosophical standpoint and from a principled standpoint, it just wasn't going to work out forever. And so at some point, you got to make that decision. And this morning was that moment.
You think you'll be able to sleep in tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're not going to wake up automatically?
Yeah. Yeah, we're actually going to do our podcast
tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We'll Facebook Live it and everything.
Yeah, we'll Facebook Live, and this is how we're going to carry forward until we walk through whatever door we're going to walk through.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes from here.
All right. Neal Larson and Julie Mason, you can find them on Facebook as well as their podcast. They just mentioned that. And they resigned today after 9 years at KID for Neal and about 2.5 for Julie. And we'll see what's next. I guess you don't know what they're going to fill the show with starting tomorrow.
I have no idea. In fact, there are things that we can do technically to put in national programming. It was so abrupt, I didn't even do that. So I wish I could give you a preview of what was going to happen, but I don't know. So.
All right. All right, guys. Thanks so much.